Brahman can be described best as transcendent immanent reality, one without a second, existence, consciousness, bliss, absolute. The reality can never be described, but the approximate or best description would be this: transcendent immanent reality, sarvatita sarvavyapi or sarvatita sarvagata, ekameva dvitiya, satchit ananda, and you may add ananta or absolute, that means nirapeksha. This may be the best description of the reality, indication at least of the reality. Now what happens? I referred to it last time. What happens? That this transcendence and immanence of the reality, some people lay emphasis on the transcendental aspect, like Shankaracharya. Some people lay emphasis on the immanent aspect, like the Saint Gyaneshwar of Maharashtra, and Thakur or Swamiji, not different at all. Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda have laid equal emphasis on both, and that is what is the nature of reality. The absolute reality or Parabrahma cannot be described only as Nirguna Brahma. It is a Nirguna Saguna Brahma. Sarvatit Sarvyapi is also can be described as Nirguna Saguna Brahma. Sarvatita Sarvyapi. My Guru used to tell, put a hyphen between. That means these are not two separate things. Anyway, now this immanence of God is being described here. If you are following, some of you, many of you, Bhagavad Gita, the first verse of the 7th chapter says, Mayashrita mano buddhi yogam yunjan madashraya asamshayam samagram mam yatha gyasasi tachrunu. In the first 6 chapters, the transcendence of God is emphasized, but nowhere virapta saguna, but emphasis is on transcendent aspect. And then he says that, having me as the center, if you are meditating upon the transcendent, you may attain Nirvikalpa Samadhi, provided you have taken me as the center point. Then the transcendence will take you through Neti Neti to the Nirguna Brahma through Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But that is the half truth. When you open your eyes and see the world again, you will not see the world as you are seeing now. You will see God in everything. Some people make a big noise on Swami Turiyanandaji's last sentence. Brahma Satyam Jagat Satyam Satya Satya Pratishtitam Prana Satyam Satya Se Satyam Brahma. There is nothing new in that. There is nothing new in Sri Ramakrishna's so-called Vijnanavad. Sri Ramakrishna did not come to establish any Vada. Sri Ramakrishna used to show the nature of reality and accepting all Vadas. And that accepting all Vadas we have seen on the last term. Sri Ramakrishna's Vijnanavad is described in the 7th chapter of the Gita, in the 9th chapter of the Gita. When you experience that, what happens? Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam, and there Shankara says, Vijnana is sometimes described as Vishesha Jnana, but there Shankaracharya says, Anubhava Sanyuktam. When the knowledge, which is as a concept, becomes realized, becomes experienced, we call it Vijnana. And that Vijnana, in the 7th chapter of the Gita, immanence of God is being described. Bhagavan is telling there, when you realize the Nirguna Brahma, and afterwards, how you will know the world, that I am telling you before. So this opens up another way to God. Normally what we say, the bhakti or iti marga. Shri Ramakrishna's description, neti iti, is that you transcend everything, go beyond everything to reach God. And when you open your eyes and come back, you see Brahman as this world. That is what Turiya Swamiji is meaning. Jagat as such, Swamiji will show here, Jagat as such is not true, but as Brahman's appearance is true, because Brahman is true. In the 8th mantra of the Ishopanishad, where Shankar says it is Sarupa Lakshana, there those two words, Paribhu and Swayambhu, he has described as Pari means Upari Vartate, and Swayambhu means that which is beyond, and from that which is beyond, both he himself is. That is what is God in everything. So, in English there is no better word than God. In Sanskrit the word is Brahman. And the word Brahman represents both Sagun Nirguna Brahma. Our Brahma means Sagun Brahma. Parabrahma is not Nirguna Brahma. Parabrahma is Nirguna Saguna Brahma. Give it up. The world we have been thinking of as so long, the world which we have been clinging to so long, is a false world of our own creation. So very clearly Swamiji has used the word false or unreal of our own creation. Give that up. Open your eyes and see that as such it never existed. As such, as it appears, it never existed. It was always an appearance. It was a dream like you had. In dream also so many things appear, but they do not exist. So that day I said, one of the Swami said, for the sake of logical congruency, Shankar denies this big world. In dream also this is a big world. So, it was a dream, Maya. What is meant by Maya here? What is meant by dream? That it was real so long as it was dreaming. When it come out, it is no longer real. What is meant by Maya? It is a mixture of real and unreal. That is contradiction in terms. That Swamiji has explained in 3 lectures on Maya. That the world is Maya means world is a mixture of existence which is God and appearance which is only an appearance. Consciousness can never be associated with matter, but the world is mixture of consciousness and matter. That is called Maya. What existence was the Lord himself. Buddha brought the Vedanta to light, gave it to the people and saved India. 1,000 years after his death, a similar state of things again prevailed. In Karma-yoga, Swamiji has told that the world is like the dog's curly tail, because it is seen through our mind only. And so again that thing gets disturbed. Again the materialism gains. The mobs, the masses, and Swamiji tells the process why it got corrupted. The mobs, the masses and various races had been converted to Buddhism. Naturally, the teachings of the Buddha became in time degenerated, because the masses, that is the fact of life. Whatever you shout, it is a fact of life. That how can the masses or the majority conceive of consciousness? How can they conceive that we have to transcend this world? And so, when they adopt Buddhism, they made it degenerated. They adopted Buddhism in name and they degenerated it. because most of the people were very ignorant. Buddhism taught no God, no ruler of the universe. So gradually the masses brought their gods and devils and hobgoblins out again. And a tremendous hodgepodge was made of Buddhism in India. So whatever we blame from Tantras or this or that is decadence of Buddhism. Again materialism came to the fore, taking the form of license with the higher classes and superstition with the lower. License means same, eat, drink and be merry in the name of religion. Instead of saying we don't want religion, in the name of religion do all sorts of enjoyments. And the lower classes only superstition, worship ghosts and pretas and bhutas. Then Shankaracharya arose and once more revivified the Vedanta philosophy. He made it a rationalistic philosophy. So, through reason he showed everything that the Upanishads, what they are talking, is not irrational, it is supra-rational, it satisfies reason in every way. And so his commentary appears to be intellectual or rational. He wants to show that the experience of the rishis, they are not against reason. Then Shankaracharya arose and once more revivified the Vedanta philosophy. He made it a rationalistic philosophy. In the Upanishads, the arguments are often very obscure because the previous people did not require reason. They were transcendent in nature. So if the Guru teaches, they learn. And the language was crude. But from that crude language, Shankar showed the reason. By Buddha, the moral side of his philosophy was laid stress upon. That means behave like that, behave like that. And by Shankaracharya, the intellectual side, that degenerates later on. Today, the so-called Shankarites, they think intellectualism is Vedanta, which is not true, please. Now, remember this sentence, laid stress upon. This is called emphasis. And let us remember here, the supremely wise Holy Mother Sarada Devi. She said in the olden days, the Mahapurushas emphasized some aspect of the reality. And so, other aspects became suppressed. They did not suppress, but they emphasized, and so the other items became suppressed. This time it has not happened so in Sri Ramakrishna. He has emphasized every aspect of realization of God, and so nothing got suppressed. He worked out, Shankaracharya, rationalized and placed before men the wonderful coherent system of Advaita. So this coherency, logical coherency, is the speciality of Shankaracharya. I remember here a funny incident, I will not tell the name. One monk is telling me, only for the sake of logical congruity, Shankar denies this big world. Twice he told this to me, perhaps to provoke me. I kept quiet. Only for the sake of logical congruity, Shankar denies this big world. What to tell him? In dream also such a big world is there. And it does not require Shankaracharya to deny it. When we wake up, we deny it. So, but he had to accept, the point is that he had to accept that Shankar's statements are logically congruent. And that is what Swamiji is referring. He emphasized this part. And so, the experiential part, the feeling part, the moral part became suppressed for some time. Something very remarkably bad had happened. In Amalner in Maharashtra, there is an Institute of Philosophy. And there was one, let me take the name, there is no harm, Professor Malkani was there. And in Nagpur, on Sri Ramakrishna's centenary, there was a big festival. And in lecture he said, Vedanta knows no morality. This is what Professor Malkani of the Institute of Culture, Institute of Philosophy in Amalner said. People became provoked. And my Guruji had to intervene and said, it does not mean, it means Vedanta transcends morality. When you realize Brahman, what morality do you require? Your life becomes morality. That is the real meaning. Not that it does not want morality. So, these misstatements came because of the emphasis on intellectualism by Shankaracharya and taken to the extreme by his disciples. What we know of Shankaracharya today, unfortunately, comes to us to Shankarites. And there this thing happens. I tell you, I appeal to you and I tell you, in my life, by the greatest fortune, I met such a Guru that we look at Shankaracharya through Thakur's eyes and we do not find any the slightest disharmony between Shankaracharya and Thakur. Our old Vedantis, Swami Jagadananda was the best Vedanti of our times. And he told that the only difference between Shankar and Thakur is in emphasis. Shankar lays emphasis on the transcendence of God. Thakur lays emphasis equally on the transcendence and an immanence. That means God is beyond, and that very beyond appears as this world. And this I showed you. Shankaracharya accepts this in Mandukya, Mantra 1 and 2, and also in the Vedanta Sar class I have told this. But the emphasis goes back to Nirguna Brahma. That is the whole problem. Mother has solved that problem for us. And Thakur has emphasized equally both. In Maharashtra, the Saint Ganeshwar has emphasized immanence. Shankaracharya emphasizes transcendence. And Thakur emphasizes both. If we can understand this point of emphasis, all quarrels will vanish. And nonsensical things will not come. That Thakur's philosophy is different than Shankaracharya. And it is like Aurobindo. Aurobindo does not believe in Advaita absolutely. Aurobindo has criticized Sri Ramakrishna Mission, Swami Vivekananda, Holy Mother, and we have to follow Aurobindo to understand Thakur. Please do not go that wrong way. How can Advaita follow dualism which Aurobindo represents? In Buddha we had the great universal heart and infinite patience, making religion practical and bringing it to everyone's door. In Shankaracharya we saw a tremendous intellectual power throwing the scorching light of reason upon everything. We want today that bright sun of intellectuality joined with the head of Buddha, joined with the heart of Buddha, the wonderful infinite heart of love and mercy. This union will give us the highest philosophy. In another lecture, Swamiji has said, yes, this has been achieved in Sri Ramakrishna. This will be the religion of the future, and if we can work it out, we may be sure that it will be for all times and peoples. Once the rationality and the heart and the morality is combined, it will be for all the time. And that is what Swamiji has preached, and that is what we call Ramakrishna Vivekananda Bhav. Swamiji's Advaita, as seen in Sri Ramakrishna, is comprehensive, all inclusive. As I was telling you, Shankar's Advaita comes to us through Shankarites. And in Shankarites we find tremendous narrowness. If the Dvaitis quarrel with each other, we can understand because that is nature of philosophy. But when the so-called Advaita Vedantis become fanatic, narrow, that what we say is true, others are not true, it is a shame. And so Swamiji says, another peculiarity of the Advaita system is that from its very start, it is non-destructive. Let us go up to Upanishad and we will see. Swamiji has shown, we are reading practical Vedanta. Everything that was useful in life was adopted. But with these dualists, Advaita has no quarrel. These are statements from the great Advaitist Gaudapada, Shankaracharya. Gaudapada says, we have no quarrel with any dualistic thought because they are telling about the phenomenal world and they think that reality also will be like that. We accept that the phenomenal world is like that, but we know that reality is different. So we have no quarrel with them. That is what he has stated. Shankara has also explained that nicely in the Mandukya Karikas. At the same time, the Advaitist knows that these other ideas must be, and so has no quarrel with the dualist who is on the right road. Let me tell you, this dualism is said to be the lowest of the philosophy. It is much higher than the ordinary man. Ordinary man has no God. The dualist has a God, and he is the object of supreme love. So, that is much higher than the common man, and it leads higher and higher. These other ideas must be, and so has no quarrel with the dualist who is on the right road. This is called the right road. All these lines appear to be an echo of Gaudapada's Mandukya Karikas and Shankara's Bhashya upon them. One young man approached Holy Mother and said, "What are we to you?" And flash came the reply, "You are Brahman." He was little startled because in his mind, Holy Mother is mother. So he says, "But mother, are we not your children?" She said, "Maybe, you may be my children or you are my children, but fundamentally you are Brahman only." Now understand, this is Advaita Vedanta, not the limited Advaita Vedanta intellectuals talk about it. But the great view, this motherhood, fatherhood, all the different relationships with God are the channels through which this one Brahman appearing is all, that is mother's spontaneous vision. So when he asked, "What are we to you?" flash came the reply, "You are Brahman. You are the absolute reality. Are we not your children?" "Yes, you are my children, but you are Brahman." That means the child and mother is a channel, great philosophy if you like to call it. All quarrels in the world will vanish if you can understand this mother's point of emphasis. Same truth people are telling, but in my language, in your language. I emphasize this, you emphasize that, we quarrel. So that is Holy Mother's philosophy, if you like to call it. Holy Mother's vision of reality, I will like to call it. Holy Mother's knowledge. Knowledge is not intellectual understanding. Now I will tell you another thing. Because when talking of Holy Mother, it is not different from what Sri Ramakrishna told or Swami Vivekananda told. Some people find difference between Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna, intellectually if they approach. Some people find difference between Shankaracharya and Sri Ramakrishna, intellectually approached. And as Holy Mother has said, difference is only in emphasis. So thanks to Swami Vivekananda, how nicely he has defined the comprehensive Vedanta, and there in emphasis there is difference. We do not emphasize one aspect only, and that is why everybody can find his way of growth through the Upanishads original. This is not Swamiji's original, mind you. In a lecture, later on Swamiji will tell, I am not telling you anything new. What the Rishis are told, that I am telling you. So, in the Upanishads and different emphases were there, and in this modern age we find harmony.